All right, we're about to get started. Chase, come here. So as we talk about the information and the numbers, I want you to also think about your why. What is your reason for this, right? I have Chase here. Chase, you want to say hello to the people?
Hello.
Right? So Chase is 6 now, right? He's been rolling with Daddy ever since he's been crawling around, right? And he's been one of the first members of Yes to Real Estate Field Trip by force, right? And everything that you guys see from the movement of Yes to Real Estate is my reason why, my son and my daughter, right? I want to create a legacy to where when I'm no longer here, they can walk a property and say my dad was a part of that, right? They can walk the street and see their name on the street sign. So as we proceed today, what is your reason why? What is the reason why you are here this morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, right before you start really sweating, right? And to understand that it's going to take work, effort, commitment, a team, and a community to bring to fruition what you want to happen. Okay? Let's give Chase a hand clap, everyone. Thank you so much. So now we're going to start it off and want to give you the floor or the ground to ask questions about this property. Yes. Say your name. How did you hear about it? And then your question.
My name is Beall. I've attended Yes to Real Estate events before, and now I'm wanting to get into the construction side with my nephew who's here in attendance.
Where's your nephew at?
Right behind me.
Yes, okay.
And I'm also a real estate broker. But my question is that I find it kind of bumps and bruises is the financing. So I'd like to just get some tidbits or some information about your financing. How do you approach that?
I'm glad you asked that. Financing wise, typically when we buy land, right, the bank that financed this loan on the property is Prosperity Bank, right? But when you buy land with Prosperity Bank, they require 50% upfront, right? So I didn't want to do that. So I used JSC Federal Credit Union. They're now will be, but I used those guys to finance.
Can you spell that for us?
WELLBY. Yeah, will be financial.
You can also use Houston Federal, any credit unions.
Yeah.
So be a member of a credit union. Skip the big banks.
Yeah. So whenever they finance loans for me, and I've done a great deal of loans with those guys, but they finance them at 20%. So we bought this property for $110,000. So, I'm bringing to the table, maybe $25,000, $30,000, which is a lot better than 50%.
Or even 110,000.
Yeah, or 110,000. So
spread over, because we own another acre down the street.
So that was the land cost?
yes, 110,000.
So there's another acre we own. We got that one for $350. Same thing, only 20% down. So basically 80 grand to get that one.
Yeah.
So 110 for the land, 20% down, will be.
Will be bank.
Will be
Or
financial.
any credit union, really.
All right.
Yeah.
And can you just spell the will be again?
WELLBY. Yeah.
I think if you still Google JSC,
JSC.
Credit Union, it'll still pop up and go to their website.
Yeah, and then like I said, on the build, on the construction, well, let's talk a little bit about the soft cost implications, because the soft cost is all out-of-pocket expense. That's a soil testing analysis, that's the structural engineering, that's the replat, the architectural, all of that goes into soft costs. Permitting, impact fees at the city, all that goes into our soft costs. And on this build, our soft cost was around $80,000, and that's all out-of-pocket expense. So, the numbers start to go up, and then you got the equity required on this build. The equity required on this build was $300,000. So you got.
So Chris, real quick, the 80,000 for the soft cost. How did you come up with the 80,000?
$80,000 for the soft cost. We financed that out of pocket. That's just all out of pocket.
You brought in
and then we also brought in an investor who contributed some funds to the build, which we're giving a small percentage of a return on investment to them. So that kind of helped us out a little bit. We had him invest in the project.
He gets paid out first.
Yeah, he gets paid out first, and something that's different, the way from how other guys do things. In Garland, we were talking about some Ponzi scheme that was going on in real estate. The way we do things is from an investor perspective is we don't tell guys to give us all of their money. What we do is when we get invoiced, we send them the invoice. We just CC them on the emails, and then they'll pay that invoice.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not as though they give us, say, just a raw number, $50,000. They don't just give us a check for $50,000. We send them invoices. Whenever the invoice is generated for the structural engineer, we'll send them an invoice and we'll say, hey, this is the cost of the structural engineering. Go ahead and pay that. And then we just continue to send invoices until it equates to the agreed amount that we agreed on from the outset.
We have a spreadsheet that tracks what everybody's paying, and the investor has access to that. So investors, they get access to all of our numbers. So with your investors, you want to make sure that you're extremely transparent with them.
Yeah.
Like if you're you borrowing a large sum of money from them. I don't know. Donovan's not here. He in Minnesota. He's trying to escape the heat. But Donovan's an expert in using other people's money to get projects, and he's very transparent with what he's doing. He's got them involved in all email communications. Nothing is hidden. If there's an issue with the project, they all know. So it's the same thing with us. With our investors, we're extremely transparent with everything. What's going on, what's the delay, or the city did this, or the impact fees came up to this, or yada yada yada. If you got bad news, deliver it as soon as possible. There's a lot of people that when they have bad news, instead of delivering it, they either cover it up or whatever, and that just makes the situation worse. So if you're going to bring in investors in a project, and then, talking about bringing in investors, me and Chris could tell you, when we first tried to get started, what was our first development, back in 2015 we was trying to do? Yeah. We tried to buy a piece of land in 5th Ward for, what was that, $25,000?
$25,000.
Man, I miss them days.
Yeah.
The cheapest lot we ever bought in 5th Ward was $30,000. Yeah. And that one turned out to be stolen. So that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucked. But anyway, we had this investor, this guy we had found through a bank relationship. And, he basically, when it came time to perform, just left us high and dry. And he said, you guys ain't got no experience. You ain't got no skin in the game. I can't do it for you. So, unless you got somebody that in your family who trusts you, you're now trying to get a stranger to trust you with a large sum of money to perform a very difficult task, which is getting a project built. And
but there's another side of that. I understand now what the guy meant by skin in the game. I think that you should never put others at risk unless you have some kind of risk associated with that transaction. So we got an investor in on this deal, but we got the financing. We went to the bank. We put up the equity, the majority of the equity. So from that perspective, we share most of the risk. 100% of the risk is on us because we got the loan in our name. We had to get pretty much the financing piece, and all he did was insert some cash into our development, but we're sharing all the risk.
And that's why we get the larger share of the profit. So if you want the investor to take on more of the risk, what's the total equity invested in this project is probably almost just $450 or something like that? Yeah. $450,000. So if you go to an investor and ask him for $400K, but then you tell him you're going to take 70% of the profits, he's not going to do that deal with you.
Yeah.
But if you come to him and say, hey, give me $400K to do this deal, and I'll give you 70% of the profits, and I'll take 30%, he'll do the deal with you. And some people don't want to do that, but you got to look at it. If you do this deal, now you look better to the bank, because the bank is like, oh, you got a project done. We'll raise your LTVs. This is an experience-based business. The more projects you have completed, the better your financing gets. We got banks that told us when we hit 100 homes, we get 100% financing on anything we build at a 2% interest rate. So it's all about getting to the number of units built. So if you can get there, if you got to give up some profit to begin with, Andre is the king of sharing profit with people on flips. Half of something is better than all or nothing.
And banks banks don't really like to loan on new construction. This development is a B2R loan, a build to rent loan. They really don't like to build new construction because it's speculative. You know, you can run your numbers and say, oh, it's going to sell at 300,000 a pop, and then the market changes in 6 to 8 months, and then they're selling at 250. So that's why banks don't really like to do speculative builds, and they prefer like build to rent models. And you know, we have a course that we created. Oh boy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have a course that
I'm sorry.
we have a course that we created specifically to teach you guys about all of the soft cost implications, the costs associated with these developments, how we come up with the design concepts, everything that goes into new construction. This course will be beneficial for you.
I have a question. How you doing, Jose? When you're applying for that loan, the 80-20 loan, are you putting it under your personal information at first? For
LLC.
Project,
I'm putting it under an LLC.
From the beginning, you're applying for the loan with the LLC.
Well, I buy the land under my name.
Okay.
You know, and then once I buy that land, and then we get to a point where we're gonna roll into the construction loan, then I put it in the LLC, right? Because that limits the exposure.
So the initial financing is under your personal name for the
Yes,
land? Okay.
for the land.
Okay, and then you transfer
Yeah, I
titles
transfer
over
it.
to
Yeah.
I know you had one more man over here had a question too, right?
So you guys are part, that's how you guys, Dominic, so you guys split it 50-50 for land, you guys like 25%, you know, for 50-50. You got about your stuff, or you guys split it in half,
No, either of us will just buy the land.
Yeah.
Either of us, you know, because you know we have a good rapport. We're partners. We're business partners. So
We also have separate businesses that we run too
Yeah.
that make us look good to banks.
yeah.
You guys have a joint LLC together for the business?
Well, whenever we do
A project.
we
It's a project
will create a project LLC, like a NewCo, and then all of the funds from that development will go to that NewCo, and then they get
Everything gets
distributed to whoever's LLC.
And our own companies will be members of the LLC, and any investors we have will be members of the LLC. So the
well.
LLC is the coverage for everybody in the project. So it's layers of protection in there.
So
Your question.
Okay, so let's just, cause I have a question, cause it's like this. So
I'm sorry. Say your name and where you're from.
I'm
and what-
Shanae. I'm from New Orleans.
New Orleans.
From the booyah.
All right, so let's see. Some people in here may be new at this, so can we get kind of like a rundown? So say for example, somebody they want to do primary resident new build. Say they want to build a fourplex. So basically walk us all through the process from beginning. You go find the land, see if what is able to be developed. I mean,
Yeah,
what it's zoned for, and then
That's
go.
kind of what the program.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the coaching program will do.
But
'cause
just
that's
a
something
brief,
we can't really cover in like
Okay,
5 minutes.
but just a brief synopsis of you know, whenever we purchase land, right? We do an investment analysis. We do an investment report before we purchase land. We come up with our design concept, like in Sunnyside when we built 2 duplexes. We want to see what the highest and best use is for the property. So based off the city's criteria for building on that land, we're going to come up with a design concept. And then we're going to run our numbers based off of that. So once we run those numbers and they tell us, hey, it's a viable deal, then that's when we choose to buy the property. We don't just go out there and say, oh, we're going to drive the community. Oh, I see some land over here. I'm just going to buy this land in an area. I didn't run any comps. I don't know how to run any numbers. But I just think that, oh, this list price is fine. I'll pay for $150 for a lot that really should be selling for $75,000. Now, on the front end, you overpaid by $75,000. Then on the back end, you're not making any money because you don't know how to run the numbers. So that's what we're teaching you in the class. We're teaching you how to analyze the numbers, how to analyze what's a good deal and a bad deal. We just put a property under contract 2 days ago in Fifth Ward. I'm like, man, this is a 5,000 square foot lot. And then the real estate agent said, oh, the previous buyer that had it under contract, they couldn't close. And then I looked at the photos closer, and we noticed that there was a utility easement on the side of that 5,000 square foot lot. So that easement probably is, 10, 15 feet wide. So you think you're getting a 5,000 square foot lot when really you're only getting a 3,000 square foot lot.
Yeah.
So these are the things that you have to know from the outset, in the beginning, and then you got to have a survey. We had a property. These are pitfalls that Andre's talking about. We're trying to help you avoid. We had a property that we owned in near Northside. Purchased the property in an auction. Didn't have time to get the survey. We did the remodel, and then we had to get the survey to close the loan. And then it wasn't until we closed the loan that we realized that 2.5 foot of the property the owner actually owned. And the house, the neighbor owned, and the house was actually on the building line. So I didn't include $10,000 to acquire 2.5 feet from my neighbor, but we had to buy it to close because the house was literally on the property line. So you couldn't put a fence, couldn't get a gas meter put out there because there's certain requirements as far as putting gas meters out there and distances from the fence. So these are the kind of things we're going to teach you. Never buy a property without a survey.
Never.
Because if you buy a property without a survey, there could be easements going through that property that restricts you from building anything.
And always get a soil test as well.
Yep.
Right. So during your option period, before you close on the land, you want to make sure that you know what's going on with the land. So many times to where, as agents and realtors, myself, you don't know if your client is telling the truth about what was beneath the land.
Just believe they lying.
Right? Yeah. You have to assume because the agent is going to say, do your own investigation. Yeah, right?
You got to do your own due diligence.
And so anytime you're looking to buy land, get you some option period, right? Get 10 days or more, right? And you want to check the survey and check the land, right? That's a crucial part because once you know what's in there and you go to sell it, and now you know the land is contaminated, now you're trying to flip it and sell it, guess what? That's a lawsuit for you and your agent. Even though your agent didn't know, you bring them in on it, and they can get covered on the lawsuit as well.
You know what that is? Disclosure.
Yeah.
You have to disclose anything that you know about that property. And if you don't disclose it, somebody's going to find out about it. So that's a little bit as far as financing.
Hi, I'm Adele. This is my partner, Gabrielle.
From where?
I'm originally from Mississippi.
Yes.
She's from Mo City.
Mo City. I'm sorry, one more thing. How did you hear about the event?
Word of mouth. We've attended some of the Zoom calls that mentioned coming here and talking to you directly. You told us about it.
Yeah.
So you talked about ingenuity. I wanted to know, as a developer, when you came across this land, what did you see? Because I don't see it.
That's good. That is good. That's good.
Can I add to that?
That is
Especially, I personally noticed there's a lot of small properties and even your competitors. So how does that work, especially with the size and running the comps?
Yeah, so I drove the area. I came up North Main. And of course I knew Independence Heights. We had been in Independence Heights several times. It's a flood zone, so we didn't want to touch it. So I just kept driving north, and I saw pockets of townhouses, but I saw large townhouse communities. And I was like, oh, okay, hey, the white boys over here popping off. Hold on, let me see. I'm driving around. I'm like, yo, man, I'm on the phone with Chris. Bro, I think I found our next area, man. And he on his phone looking at everything while I'm driving. I'm like, bro, look, oh man, they selling these for X amount of money or X amount of money or yada yada yada. And so I don't even think I drove past this lot. So I think I just came down Yale and Shepherd and saw all of the stuff going on in the area. I didn't even go over to Wheatley when I initially drove through. I think I came back maybe 2 months later and drove down more of the area and saw that there was more, and I was like, yo, this is a good area to be in. So the thing that some of the things I look at is what's going on in the area. I know there's a Whole Foods that they just built about 3 years ago right there off of Yale and 610. When you go down Wheatley, there's a whole new retail development that they just built right over there. there's a bike trail not even 10 minutes from here that I've actually ridden several times. It's very popular. It's probably one of the most popular trails for cyclists in the area. So all of those things play a factor because I'm like, okay, Shepherd is the main access into downtown. You don't even have to get on the freeway. So Shepherd is actually supposedly a bikeable street. Not right now, but the city's actually making improvements to it. So when I drove through the area, I saw, hey, there's an opportunity for development. Now, how I knew what to build on here, we just looked at what our competitors were doing and looked at what we could do to differentiate ourselves. So this lot, it was a little tougher to put 5 units on it, so it made more sense to do 4 and to do 4 larger units than our competitors because they're packing more units on their sites. That's a double lot over there. So if this is 10,000, that's a 20,000 square foot lot.
Yeah.
The one on the corner that most of you probably passed, that's another 20,000 square foot lot. They put, well, that one's bigger than that because he put 12 on those. Because he did 10 over here, 12 over there. So just looking at those things and then looking at the rest of the area, there was some other, there's these guys right here on the corner that built these, they built the 2 3-stories that they have not been able to sell because there's obvious issues with them. Yeah. But then they had the 2 2-stories that sold pretty quickly and they have good comps on them. So just looking at the numbers in the area, the area will tell you what'll work. Even though we're 400 square feet bigger than these, our design is different than them, and we know that people like first floor living, kitchen, and dining. It's harder to find those style of townhouses in our city because most of them, we have a garage on the lower level, a bedroom, second floor living, kitchen, and dining, and usually they're going up 3 stories.
And from a developer's perspective, you can never let emotions be involved. You know what I'm saying? You might think, oh, when I drive this area, I don't think this is a good area. But if you know how to analyze the numbers
will tell you.
The numbers will tell you if it's a good deal or a bad deal. I don't care how the area looks. When I run the numbers, and if those numbers dictate that it's a viable deal, I'm gonna buy the land. This is close to Oak Forest as well. Oak Forest is 5 minutes from here. Yep. Oak Forest has $1 million homes.
Yep. So
$1.2 million homes.
Just so they can say, oh, I live in Oak Forest.
And also the Heights is right on. The Heights, I mean, some people can't afford to stay in the Heights. And this is 10 minutes from the Heights. So everybody just continues to migrate further and further out. And that's why we're building here now.
Close to the Bush Airport, so, eventually they're going to expand 45. We don't know when. Well, actually, we do know when, but eventually they'll do that. That's like a 20-year project, though.
Yeah, I have a question. My name is Ronnie Harrison with my wife, Dorothy. We're with MSU Investors. My question is, and I think Andre alluded to it a little bit earlier, how do you determine your profit margins?
We run the numbers.
We run the numbers, yeah. When we we can take a piece of dirt, and based off of the design, if we say we're going to put 4 townhomes on it, we have a investment report, and then it'll generate what the profit margins are going to be.
Yeah.
We put in what the comps are, what it's selling per square foot, how much it's costing us to build. So that spreadsheet tells us everything. And at the bottom, it tells us, hey, the profit margins are going to be $250,000. The profit margins may be 50,000. They may be 100,000. Yeah. It's going to tell you.
So for a quick calculation, we know what our numbers are and what we're building. So we know we could build these units that we're building right here for like $105 a square foot. So when we go and look at a lot, like we just did this past week, we can go look at the comps and look at the square footages, so we'll look at what the total building area is. Okay, they building 2,000 square foot townhouses with a garage. They're probably about 2,400 square feet. We say, okay, at 2,400 square feet, that means it's gonna cost us probably about, $250,000 to build the house. So if the house selling for $475, well, you back out the 252. We know on average we spend, without a shared driveway, we'll spend $15,000 in soft costs a unit. That's for us, okay? Your numbers could be different, but for us.
That's without a shared driveway.
Without a shared driveway. Shared driveway is more expensive. Yeah. So without, a private drive development, we're about $15,000 to $17,500 a house. So we back out all those numbers, and then we can see just quickly what if it meets our minimum profit. For us, we typically want to be like around 50, 60,000 a unit. You know, so if we run those numbers on the land and we look at the land and it's like, oh, it's $30,000, we know we either got to get the land cost down or we got to, you know, walk away from that lot. You know,
Because markets change.
yeah,
If you're at 30,000, if the properties are not appreciating and they're depreciating based off of the market conditions, you might be at 15,000.
or they might be appreciating right now and something changes.
Yeah.
Like interest rates just shot up again. So the time it takes to get, we bought this lot, what, last December?
Yeah.
Not this December, December before last. Yeah, December before last. So that was 2021. So it took almost a year and a half to get to this point.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're able, you know, for one, it took us 6 months to get out of permitting. So when you're planning these projects, you know, you got to plan for at least 12 months before you even seeing money change hands. You know, we usually plan for like 12 to 18 months. Bigger projects, you're looking at probably 2 years. You know, we got another one down the street, a large build-to-rent community. That's probably like a 2-year project. Construction will probably take a year alone to build all 15 units.
But you know, when you know what that property's cash flowing on a monthly basis, and then you know if you get a loan at 15 years, and then after 15 years, if you're getting all that passive income, and then it's not taxed, you're in a good position. You know, you build 15 townhomes and you're cash flowing $40,000 a month. In 15 years, when it's paid off, you're cash flowing $40,000 a month. It's tax free.
Yeah, this is a shared driveway. This
Somebody had a question. Okay, there's like 3 different questions. Okay, I saw her hand first.
Just to piggyback off of Ronnie, I guess my question is,
We can't hear you.
with the templates, you know, a lot of us will be first-time developers. Is that a self-made template, or is there some software tools for?
This is Excel.
Excel. Yeah, we created, you know, and people who are going to be a part of the developers course, they're going to get those spreadsheets.
Yeah, we'll
they're
get
gonna
the spreadsheets.
they're going to be able to. We're going to teach you how to run a number. We're going to teach you how to insert what you need to insert in that spreadsheet to generate the profit margins that you're looking for.
And real quick, I want to encourage someone. You said a question about how do you know what area to go invest in, right? I did a YouTube with MG, the mortgage guy. I said you want to go to the area to where the dogs and cats are walking themselves, right? Did you guys see that? And over here, the roosters, right? So you have to be a visionary, right? So when we bought in Fifth Ward 2-3 years ago, people laughed at us, right? We bought that lot, a 10,000 square foot lot for $75,000. That lot right now is worth $250,000. And you're talking about 2 years ago, right? And so you have to do your research, but okay with being able to go into a community and know that it's changing. That when you are the first or the second, you're the scapegoat, right? You got to create the comps, which was we did without the garage door, but now a lot of people are building homes without a garage. So you got to be okay with being the first or second to go into community. But when you do, and you have the land, you're going to eat very, very well. Like those townhomes, we made like $130,000 per townhome profit.
And the best thing about that is, look, we'll run our numbers, like on this build-to-rent community that we were just talking about. Our first design concept had garages. And we had them at first. And we were running the numbers and we said, man, the profit margins on this isn't as much as it would be if we omitted the garages. So we omitted the garages from the design and the profit shot up, 30%. But that goes to show that when you know how to design, when you know what concepts to put together, and you're getting a lot of living square footage. Whenever you sell a townhomes like this, you can't include the square footage of the garage in your sale. So if that garage is 200 square feet or 150 square feet, or bigger than that. I'm just throwing a rough number out there. If it's
Real
too,
quick, who has a Ford Explorer and
A Cadillac
a Cadillac
sitting right on the side of the street.
on the side of the street? Ford
The
Explorer,
SUV, the Cadillac SUV.
Cadillac SUV,
And then the other one's a Ford.
a Ford
Black. Two
Ford
black
what?
cars sitting right on the side.
on the side of the street. Go ahead, Chris.
I have a car sit on the street, but it's not one of them.
They can't, yeah. They got almost beat the Cadillac. That's what you see.
Gotta be somewhere, right?
but is there any other questions?
Yeah, there was more. He had one.
So y'all said y'all got a build to rent loan. Do y'all have to refinance out of that to sell it, or does the bank not care at that point what y'all do with it?
Well, it's based off of what terms you negotiate in the beginning. So when we were negotiating with the lender, I told them that I didn't want any fee associated with an early refinance.
Okay.
So there's no fee. So if I decide to refi or if I decide to sell the property, they're not going to charge me. Because some lenders, if in the first 3 to 5 years, if you sell that property, they may charge you 2% or 3%. They'll charge you a percentage. So this lender, I said, hey, in order for me to do this loan, construction loan with you, I don't want to have any fees if I decide to sell this. And they agreed. So there's no fees associated.
Did they add any points up front for that, or they just wanted your business so they were willing to negotiate?
Yeah, they were willing to negotiate.
Okay.
Yeah.
You gotta understand too how banks make money. A lot of people don't understand this. Banks make money off of interest.
Yeah.
They don't make money off of you paying off the loan. So that's why subject to deals work. Because the bank would rather somebody pay the mortgage, they don't care who, than to have the mortgage paid off. You know, people always talk about a foreclosure crisis. A foreclosure is a last resort for a bank. They do not want to foreclose on a loan. Banks do not want to own property because as long as they're owning property, they're not making money off of it. If you're not paying the mortgage, if somebody isn't in there paying the mortgage, they're not making no money. So that's why they will work with you. They will do whatever. They'll allow you to do a short sale. They'll do whatever to get you to keep that property off their books. And that's why, now after the housing crash, they have all these protections in. If you have less than 20%, you have PMI. So if you default on the loan, what happens is if you still don't have 20% equity, the bank takes back the property. They'll sell it at a loss. They file an insurance claim and make up that difference. Yep. All they doing is protecting themselves. They ain't protecting you. They protecting themselves. So that what happened in 2008 doesn't happen again. Yeah. But people keep thinking, oh, a housing crash is coming and we're going to have another foreclosure crisis. That was a gold rush. You'll never see that again. Banks do not want to foreclose on property. They don't want to hold assets. They're in the business of loaning out your money that you have with them and making money off of it. That's all they try to do. So,
but as an investor, when there's blood on the streets, there's money to be made.
somebody else has some questions.